PCW to become the head trainer of the Slam Pro Wrestling. And from January 2010 to 2011, he was the PCW National Champion, becoming the longest reigning champion in PCW history. He has won this title twice already, and make sure you never forget it because he is the center of attention, Trikki D.
That's right, center of attention, Trikki D, superstar, entertainer, star of 2.5 the crowd, touch a class member, professional wrestler, and all-around pretty good guy. Unless, Troy, you piss me off.
Oh, well, let's hope not to do that today, shall we?
Let's hope not. How you going?
I am doing very well. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. And I've actually got a little bit of a SYN FM story for you, which will be quite amusing. I used to be a storeman in 2005, and I'd listen to SYN FM. And there was a rap show, and I think it was on a Thursday night. I don't exactly remember the night. I think it was Thursday. But I used to always text in, because they'd say, text request your songs and things like that. And this was around the time Macho Man Randy Savage actually brought out his rap album.
Oh,
so
yes.
I was determined to get them to play a Macho Man rap song, and they were so against it, it got to the point they thought I was actually a fake person just trying to, play around, and they actually ended up blocking my number.
Oh, wow.
Genuine listen. If they had have played Macho Man, Be a Man, I would have, I would have just stopped messaging.
And you would have been their biggest fan too.
Absolutely.
But anyway, just so that people know, I want to get a bit of a background on you, Trikki D. So just to start it off, what inspired you to wrestle?
I was always a massive fan of professional wrestling. There's actually a photo of me at about 7 or 8 months old, and I've got a Hulk Rules headband on, and I'm just sitting in a beanbag. And so my brother was actually a massive wrestling fan, and pretty much my biggest influence growing up, till I guess about the Bret Hart era, where Bret Hart took over, was Hulk Hogan, because I was always a massive WWF fan. When Bret was the man, when he took over, and so you've got Hulk and Bret, they're probably my two biggest heroes of all time. And I've always loved wrestling. There really wasn't a week that had gone by in my life where I didn't, watch wrestling or something like that. So, yeah, wanting to be a professional wrestler, it's just, I think it was one of those things. I just had a passion for it.
Where exactly does the name Trikki D come from?
The center of attention, Trikki D. D is David. David's actually my middle name as well.
Oh, well, there you go.
when I was actually first involved, I was a referee. This is around 2002, 2003. I was referee Shane David. So that's what I went by. And then, as I was starting to train, as I was starting to come up for my first match, people started to say, "Well, look, what do you want to call yourself?" And in my first ever match, I was Shattered Glass Shano. That was my name, my first ever match. Now, it didn't go too well, that match, so I took a bit of time off, and I can't remember, it might have been about 2 or 3 months off, just to sort of think things out and get back into it. And the whole time I was refereeing, though. And then they said to me at training, they go, "God, man, the stuff you do is pretty tricky." And I don't think there's been a Trikki before. And I sat there and I thought about it, and I thought, well, first thing that came to my mind was Run DMC. It's Trikki. So automatically I've got entrance music by default. and I thought, well, how can I make Trikki more me? And I thought, well, if I change the spelling up, so instead of Tricky, if I go Trikki, I did a Puff Daddy. I got rid of the Shane and the Avid and kept the D. So it was Trikki D. And where the center of attention sort of came about was... that sort of goes along with being the tricky side of it. People started to say, you always want to be the center of attention. And then when we went to OVW in 2007, they were saying, you need to work on mic spots. This is an area you guys all need to work on. They go, okay, so you need to develop some mic spots, and they give you a bit of advice. And I was sitting around and I was thinking about, I know center of attention. I like the center of attention Trikki D, but I don't know how it all comes together. And then I started to put some mic spots together. I'm Australian, green and gold, things along those lines. And I cut this mic spot. I don't exactly remember how it goes. I remember saying how it's Trikki D, I represent green and gold. And at the end of it, the Mad TV, the guy said to me, he goes, I loved about your mic spot, I love the green and the gold stuff. Because that says to me money and championships.
Oh.
And I sat there and I went, I never thought of it like that. And he goes, what does the green and gold mean to you? You didn't mean it that? I'm like, no, that's the Australian Olympic colours. I'm like, oh, okay. So then I came up with this mic spot. I went something along the lines of, my name is the centre of attention Trikki D, and I represent two things, the green and the gold. But I'm not talking about any of that Olympic bravado. I'm talking about two other types of green and gold. I'm talking about the money and the championships. Because when you got the money and you got the championships, you are instantly the centre of attention.
You are the longest reigning PCW national champion in history.
That's right. That is absolutely right.
And you have won the title twice in your career as well.
That's correct.
What would you say is it like, not only winning a championship twice, but also being able to carry it for over a year?
Every time you're wrestling in the main events, it doesn't matter what anyone says, locally or whatever it is, there's a lot of pressure going in, because you got to remember that people always talk about, wrestling's fake and blah, 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 blah. Well, if you have a show full of, how many guys? Like, we've probably got like 20 guys on a show or something like that, on one night. This isn't mentioning the reserves, the guys that are wanting that big show spot. Because we've got, at the Slam Academy, we've got a student school, and they're full of reserves. We've got so many guys that even the reserves, they're struggling to get matches now. So you got these guys waiting in the wings wanting to jump up. And when they're looking at the main events, these are the guys who they're looking up to. So in a certain extent, they're looking up to me when I'm in that main event. And if I'm doing matches and I'm maybe stuffing up my moves a lot, or I'm tripping over, and I'm basically, the crowd don't give a crap as to what I'm doing, then I'm not going to have that championship very long. As a matter of fact, I'm not going to have my spot for very long. And if I keep it up, chances are I won't be on the shows. So it's a very competitive atmosphere, because there's guys always wanting to jump in. There's been guys who have got injured, hurt their ankle, something like that. They take 2 months off, and they can't get their spot back because, sorry, we gave your spot to someone else, and that's how it is. So it is very competitive.
Okay, well, you mentioned before about the people that always comment with wrestling's fake. What do you think about those sort of people?
It's a classic saying. It goes something along the lines of, wrestling's like religion. Some people get it and some people don't. I don't have much time for people who, don't really have much interest in wrestling and are quick to just call it fake, rubbish, whatever. I do have a lot of time for people like yourself, Troy, who are genuinely interested. I'm sure the listeners of this show who are genuinely listening right now, I have a lot of time, because I love, the bottom line is, we've all got something we love. I love footy, but I never had the passion to play it. I had the passion to do wrestling, and I had the passion to really want to succeed in what I do in wrestling, because I enjoy it. So I don't think it's, if people enjoy something, why do you want to try and, flatten their tires?
All right. Just one last question towards you. Where can we find Trikki D?
TrikkiTube.com. So this is basically my YouTube page. I've linked it up. I have pretty much all my matches on there. We've actually got a variety show on there as well called 2.5 The Crowd. It's featuring the black dude, the white guy, myself, and the midget. The black dude is a friend of mine, Afro Chris. Why do they call him Afro Chris? Well, think of his hair. He's got a pretty big afro. And you got Mr. Big, who's actually a professional wrestler as well. I've known him for years. And, myself. And we got up to create, when we go out, people specifically want a picture of Big and Chris. Because they're going, you wouldn't believe, there's been stories where my sister goes, you wouldn't believe, someone got back to the office and goes, I saw a midget and a black dude with massive afro. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. And they go, yeah, that's my brother's friend.
All right, well, thank you very much, Trikki D. Ladies and gentlemen, the centre of attention, Trikki D, here on the Smackdown Hotel. Thank you for coming in.
And when you can't hit what you can't see, you just got beaten by the centre of attention, Trikki D.
With the green and gold.
Money and championships.
Thank you for coming in. And that wasn't all we were talking about on the interview. You can check out the Smackdown Hotel webpage, as there was a lot more that myself and Trikki D got into in this 45-minute interview, which includes Trikki's thoughts on wrestling internationally, WWE's current product, and a lot, and I mean a lot, on NXT, and of course more. So please check out the Smackdown Hotel webpage at syn.org.au/program/SDH for the full unedited interview in the next couple of days probably. And also, anyone interested, I know a lot of you are because you've been texting in showing so much support and love for Trikki D. You can see Trikki and many of the other PCW stars at PCW Countdown Saturday, August the 3rd at the Polish Club, 1325 Stud Road, Rowville. Please check out auswrestling.com for more information. So a big thank you to Trikki D for coming onto the show, and a big thank you for all of you listening to the Smackdown Hotel. Unfortunately, this is the end of the show.